We're going to show you here on this BP6010 pump head, if you're ever going to reduce the pressure on this pump, you don't want to wind this screw out past the egg core nut right here. So the screw being flush with the surrounding nut is as far as you want to take this screw out. If you go out any further, if you wind this out too far past the surface here of the egg core nut, you'll start leaking water. So don't wind this pressure adjustment out any further than a flush with the edge of the egg core nut. See how the screw is flush right here? That's as far as you want to go out with it. Oftentimes if you have really scaly water and you have the waste ratio too low, you'll actually see the scale coming out of the drain side. And we're going to show you that right now really quick. We're going to turn it on. And if I bring this drain meter down too low, I'll start to see the scale forming on this flow meter. And that's a very obvious sign that your waste ratio is too low and you need to open it up. See how the water clears up once we open up the waste ratio and gets cloudy right away? You want to avoid that at all costs. Now we artificially manipulated that by pumping in some really scaly water into this RO. Most often you won't see that. Let's just talk a little bit about fine-tuning this pump so it doesn't cycle. A lot of people call in and they go, hey, my pump is cycling, it's shutting on and off. And that's because, see, once again, here is the feed pressure that's hitting this pump. Here's the pressure of the coming in the RO, here's the pressure going into this pump. And when this gauge gets down to around 8 to 10 psi, this low pressure switch is going to shut off. It's going to shut the pump off. And it won't come back on until it hits around 25 psi. So 25 on, 8 off. Now what happens is if you don't have enough feed water pressure and you turn this on, your pressure is going to drop, 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 drop and cut off. Pump cuts off, the pressure rises again, and when it clicks on, it'll just bring it back down and it'll cycle, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. So the pressure's rising, and now it's falling. Rising, turning on, falling, hitting the cutoff. And this is cycling of the pump, and we don't want to do that because we will burn out this pressure switch. This is a safety factor. It's not used to regulate the RO in a sense. So one thing I can do is turn my pump pressure down. Now I notice I found a spot where my pressure gauge is holding still. The problem here is that I'm only running at 15 psi. That's not enough headroom between cutoff, which is 8. That's only 7 psi of headroom. What happens when somebody turns a sink on, flushes a toilet in the same building? I'll lose pressure, the pump will cycle again. We want to have about 30 psi on this gauge. That gives us about 25 psi before cutoff. So if somebody turns a shower on, any kind of water in the building, we're not going to hit cutoff. Here's another thing that causes cutoff. When I open up the flush valve, now all the water is going to be run through the drain part, and it's going to go through really fast, and I'm going to lose head pressure, and this system will cycle. Watch. In all cases, whether I'm opening the flush valve, decreasing my water pressure, or somebody's turning on a sink, a shower, or a toilet, I'm losing water pressure in every case. There's only two things you can do. One is to lower the pump pressure, which we just showed you, or up the feed water pressure, which means increasing the diameter of the line to the feed water, perhaps opening up the pressure regulator on the building, and opening up the plumbing that feeds the RO2. Once again, this unit should be plumbed with at minimum 1/2 inch CTS tubing, preferably 3/4 inch Schedule 80 or 3/4 inch CTS copper tube size. And that will help you prevent against low pressure conditions. Here's an interesting kind of feature of the FlowBox. These are clear acrylic flow meters, and so people call in a lot and say, hey, my flow meter is getting cloudy, and we just showed you that can cause from scale. And it can also cause from scale forming on here, because this is the dirtiest part of the RO system. This is where all the pollutants are going out, this side of the flow meter. This is the permeate of the clean water. Here's the drain. So this can scale up over time if you're on a scaly water supply, and especially running a lean waste ratio like 1:1 or even 2:1. So another thing that can happen in these flow meters besides clouding up from scale is if this unit is stored in a place where there is direct sunlight or bright grow lights, you can have algae start forming in the flow meters as well. You really shouldn't have these units installed where they're going to get direct bright light. And what you can do is, of course, shut the unit down, depressurize it. We've talked how to do that. Unplug it from all AC mains power, which I'm going to do. So you would decouple this from AC mains anytime you're going to work on this unit. What you can do is you can open the top of the flow meter if it gets really bad, and you can put a little brush down there and clean it. Big Q-tip works. You can clean this whole thing out and just rub it and get to the algae or the scale out of there so you can see it again. But again, this doesn't happen very often. If you don't keep it under direct sunlight, and if you don't have really scaly supply water, you probably won't have too much of a problem. So I just wanted to bring that up because a lot of people ask about that.